What's up, world? It's T Davis. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss a single episode of On the Top Coat. That button right there. Come for the nails while we talk a little bit.
Bible that everybody who believes that Jesus Christ died for them, it was a free gift that he gave for everybody. So no one, she doesn't need to go through her husband to be able to receive that.
So if she doesn't submit to her husband, does she really love God?
That's really the question that he would like to know here.
My bad. I was like,
he said, let me rephrase.
No, my bad. I'll let you get to the point. My fault.
How about this one? I will, when we go on the instrument, I will find the scripture on it and we can revisit it. Because I don't want anything that I say, I want it to be sound doctrine. That means it has to come from scripture. So is that all right with you?
What I heard just now is, it's okay to ruffle a couple fellas today.
I just want to say, he's putting purple on my nails and I hate purple. Guys, he asked me so many times if purple was okay.
See? Cory, see what you got me into? See what you do? So what I'm hearing is you don't want to ruffle nobody's feathers.
Huh?
No, that's fair. I think that's fair.
All right.
However, I do think that oftentimes when people hear the whole submission thing, it's triggering.
Because
and break it down for me, like why would you think that would something that would be triggering? Do you think it's the image of how we see one another, or men see women, or women see men? And that whole submission thing is kind of like, what? Like, no, thank you? Or is it that we just really don't know?
I think it comes from a few places, and it can vary depending on the person's prior experiences. But so the word itself, submission, sounds like you're taking away from one person's individuality, or like off the rip. When you hear it, it's like taking away from what one person might think, want, or do, for now to change it to what another person is requesting for me to want, or think, or do.
Okay.
Right?
Not to cut you.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to be different per person, right? And so if someone has had negative experiences with that, where it was an abuse of power, where they were literally leading them,
that was a dictatorship.
Exactly,
right.
But just loosely, the word submission, when said to someone, it can come together with all of that,
right,
based off of how it was introduced to them the first time. And so even going back to parents, not just fathers, like, but both of your parents,
right,
in terms of like how they disciplined you, or how they taught you, how they grew you, that's like our first introduction to submission, because you're being grown and you're being
very true.
Yeah. And so for some people it's that, then other people it's their relationships, then other people it's your leadership that's been around you. Before even getting into a relationship, I think my first time having to like submit would be working under someone, or even my leadership at church. Because again, going back to hierarchy. So if there is like a time where it's like, hey guys, I don't think this is going to be the best decision. Right. I don't think that this one is going to work out. And your opinion isn't like valued or being considered, etc. And then it doesn't work out. The next time that you tell me to do something that I don't think is a good idea, and I say it again, hey, I don't think that this one is going to... Eventually, I'm going to start to think that you don't know how to lead me properly. And I think that a lot of times submission comes from unsurety on how the person can lead. We, even coming down to like presidency, any place where it's like, I have to be underneath this person. I need to know that you can lead something.
Well, let me just throw a curveball at you.
Mm-hmm.
Does leadership always mean positive results?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. But what in your doing caused the negative results does.
Well, that's the part I was trying to get at, right? Because I'm a firm believer in things don't happen to you, things happen for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I do think that sometimes we see an outcome. It may not be the one that we have liked.
Mm-hmm.
We automatically think the mission is a fail.
Mm-hmm.
In turn, that could probably been the greatest victory you needed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I do think oftentimes what gets misconstrued is the outcome that I want versus the outcome that I need.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome that you need may not be dressed up like the outcome you want.
And that's why I agree with you in saying no. A negative outcome, a perceived negative outcome, doesn't mean that the person involved didn't lead well.
Right.
Like you guys could have trained your best for the Olympics and still lose. That doesn't mean that coach is a bad leader.
Right. But a part of leadership does mean results.
Yes, but in more than one way.
Okay.
Like, so for instance, if going back to like how we were just talking about the Olympics, well, did everyone have the opportunity to like have the information needed to succeed, the training needed to succeed? Like, did the person in charge make sure that everything was provided to give it your best shot? Right? Can you accept feedback? Can we pivot when change comes, when obstacles come? Those type of things make people a good leader, not necessarily just the outcome or how it happened. It's some of the things that happen along the way, along the journey, on being able to like pivot and being able to hear and like explain, etc. Not just what you were saying in terms of a dictatorship, saying, no, this is the way it is and that's the way it's going to stay. And then a negative outcome, rather than being able to like hear, pivot, acknowledge, etc. Those are usually things that make it a little easier for somebody to be like, okay, cool, this person is trying to lead me the best that they can.
So what determines a good leader? It's followers?
Well, they say that the definition of someone who is a leader, it means you have to have followers, because no one has to follow you specifically.
True.
So that's already part one. But
because I do understand your perspective, right? You know, you're not going to follow someone that keeps leading you into a ditch, right? Obviously. But we also can miscalculate and say, hey, I'm at this ditch, not knowing I'm supposed to build something from this ditch, right? So it's the things that we necessarily don't see that we don't necessarily
But right there, you just touch on something. When you realize, okay, cool, second time failure, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing that, maybe I'm supposed to be building on this, etc.
Right.
Can you pivot? Can you adapt to change? Can you is it that every time you lead us here, we're just going to wind up in a ditch? That's like the difference between a good leadership, because you have to also be able to understand that you're not just leading yourself, you are leading other people. And so every time that you land in this ditch, other people are being harmed, not just you. And so how am I addressing that? How am I pivoting from that? And then that's what is like, because everything in life can lead to a negative. There's going to be things, like even with my team, right, at work, I'm a manager, right?
Oh, you're a boss. Oh, it makes sense now.
I manage my people. Love y'all.
All right.
But part of that is like when I have like my one-on-ones, it's not that they can't make more money. It's not that they think that in the good leadership skills that I have, I'm not saying I'm not perfect, but there's availability for them to grow. There's availability for them to hear. There's availability for them to get information, but there's also a trust that I actually want to get better as a manager and that I want what's best for them.
Intent-based leadership.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So because they trust that I have their best interest, even if things don't go well in that moment, they know that I will at least pitch it. They know I have their backs, etc. So those are the type of things that go into, and that's what will make it easier for someone to submit to someone. It's like things aren't looking good,
right?
But I'm gonna keep submitting over here. I'm gonna keep listening to their instructions because I just believe for some reason that they have my best interest. If you can't prove that you have someone's best interest, there's always going to be pushback on submission.
All right, it's tricky. I'm sorry, just to cut in, right? Two questions, right? Well, three questions.
Okay.
One is for T. Davis.
No,
right?
just two. No, I'm kidding.
As a male, do you feel the pressure of leadership, right? The second question is, what would we know that leadership requires, well, has expectations?
Mm-hmm.
But is there expectations for submission? Like, do the leaders just say, "Oh yeah, I got to follow, but that's you green light," or do they say, "Look, no, there's standards for that." You know what I'm saying? So that's the second question. And the third question is, what do we say about those stories, right, with generals and soldiers? And, not all generals had major armies. Some generals had that loyal 50 soldiers or that loyal 100 soldiers. And sometimes the general would do something to make the king upset, and then you got 10,000 people chasing you, and they chasing the general and his loyal 100 soldiers. They're following the general. Clearly, the general got them in a very unique and bad situation. Whether they agree with it or disagree with it, they follow the general.
Right.
What does this mean? What do something? Because they're submitting to their general.
Exactly.
At this point, they can say, "He's putting me and my family's life in danger. I need to jump ship because logically this don't look good." What does it say about them following this general?
But that still has to do with something about because same way we're saying, like, in order to be a leader, you have to have followers, because just like you said, there's always something that can happen that's going to make somebody say, even there was like, I can't, I'm going to find it, but even there was one time where Jesus told he had said something outlandish, and he told, and everyone left because they were like, "Absolutely not, I'm not doing that." And he said to the disciples, "Are you going to leave too?" And they said, "But where will we go?" Because they found like truth and hope and everything in him, so that's why they would stay. So again, good leadership is not just having
good outcomes.
It's not just good outcomes, but it's also it really comes down to trust in your like wisdom and your direction, and like the loyalty develops from there. I was watching, I can't remember if it was Troy or Gladiator, but one of those movies, Russell Crowe, Gladiator 1. It was Gladiator 1. After they just told him, the king was like, "No, you're basically gonna serve me." And he was like, "I'm really not out. I'm going home to my kids." And he told them, he said, "What kids? Like, you have no wife and you have no kid. And they're all gonna die with you tomorrow." And it was like, "Oh yeah." And he left, and a few people left with him, knowing that the whole of Rome was about to come to find just this one general. But he had already shown them his qualities, his characteristics, to make them say, "Nah, I'm still gonna ride with you till done. Like, I'm still gonna stick beside you." So if you could show that, like, your character has to reflect someone that, and and that could come with time, that could come with trust, that can come from like different things depending on the person, like what they need to see, like that makes them feel like, okay. You're at least trying. You don't have to be there yet, but I could see if he just had the right team, if he just had the right person behind him, he'll eventually get there. And like you see that a lot for women too. Like they'll say, like, anyone else could be like, well, what is it about him that you just like, and she's like, I could see it. If y'all just hold on.
Right.
His vision is there. He just needs, because sometimes the vision is there, the qualities, the characteristics are there. And so that's what makes it like easier to submit a little bit. But your first question was to,
You said, is it? Oh, to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the pressures of leadership?
Yes, that was well, with the Jesus story, that was he had to go with his riches, which is very which is something to study because
Well, then he said, was it his riches or he said sell everything?
Yeah, sell everything.
If
you want to follow me, because he was like, I'm doing everything perfect. If you do everything perfect and you're rich, then don't give that up.
Yeah, he said sell everything, and he walked away crying or something.
But is that logical? Like, is that not a lot of people logically? That sounds like bad leadership.
And so exactly, and so that's what it always comes down to. Do I trust this man and that he has my best interest
enough?
Or at all? Do you have my best? Because I worked hard for this.
Right.
So where is this coming? Like, just where is this coming from? Why are you asking me this? But it comes down to like a level of trust. Do I trust this man, or do I trust that he has my best interest?
Mm-hmm.
And so then, even tying back to your first question on, do I think that but Jesus has to be in every relationship, because even if something in me is saying, I'm not too sure about where my husband just said that we're going to do a 90-day missions trip and all right. And it might be a tough pill to swallow at first, but two things. One, do I trust that I have a relationship with Christ to be able to ask him and hear him confirm it for me? And then do I also believe that my partner has a relationship with Christ, that he is following the direction of what he heard from the Lord? That will make submitting so much easier, because you don't think he's just telling you to do X, Y, and Z because he can.
Right. He's your husband. He said,
right. Just because
I want to see if you can fly.
Exactly.
So jump out the window and then
right. It kills all the, where is this coming from, when you know it's coming from the Lord.
Okay. I mean, no, that's
yes, it is. Okay.
That's a good question. That's a good that's a sentimental response. I do think that
it doesn't make it easy though.
And you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was going to get at. I think what happens is this. Most people's perception of greatness doesn't come with the price of sacrifice. And unfortunately, when you don't calculate that in that greatness equation that you want, you have the greatest disappointment.
You think it's failure.
I could just wake up tomorrow and be great. And it's just like, no.
Yeah.
It requires sacrifice. And I think that's probably one of the greatest pressures of being a leader, is that being a great leader requires great sacrifice. Because even if, like you're saying, you have to produce outcomes, even if the people you are leading, right, aren't the best of the best, aren't the top of the food chain or whatever, it's your job as a leader to get them to that point. And whether they succeed or fail, it's on you.
Yeah.
Right? So I do think that's not necessarily taken into account when you look at when most people just look at marriages as a whole. Because it's like, yeah, you a man, figure it out. And that's absolutely, one thing a man should never do is shy away from his responsibility. Right? That's what God made you for. But on the flip side of it, I do think it's important to understand how great that is, right? Because we have it in our heads to say, oh yeah, I mean, well, that's my husband. He'll figure it out because that's what he's supposed to do.
I don't need this job. My man got 2 jobs.
Right. Like what she said, and everybody hates Chris. Yeah. This man has 3 jobs. So, but to be that great of a leader, right? It requires great sacrifice. It requires to make the tough decisions. Yeah. Right. Not knowing that he might not eat that night. You will. The kids will. He won't. That's something he got to live with.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that is important. Do I think most consider that? Absolutely not. I don't think so. Do I think we'll ever get to that point? Probably. But I think some things need to change first. I do think, like Cory said, the requirements of submission. It has a responsibility too. Mm-hmm. Just like freedom, right? Freedom has responsibility. It's not all free and clear. I don't got no. I could just walk outside and not get hit by a car. No, you can still get hit by a car, right? By a bus, a garbage truck. You know what I mean? So those things are important.
It's also, but it's also, and I hear you, and I definitely see that, because on both parts, like no one wants to, like to your example, like no one wants to be led to a ditch, right? And so it's like I'm gonna pull back, I'm gonna fall back, and I'm gonna kind of trust that he got this, or I'm gonna say, listen, you have to have it. Like, you know, that's like the two kind of standpoints that we see. But that's not all put this in. Okay. That's not all that there is. And so I just hope that there's also an increase of like vision, just like how you were saying earlier about the imagination, an increase in vision. Like whether your algorithm just changes and you get to see, like I follow like this I can't remember the name of the page, but it's only people getting engaged. It's only like Black millennials getting engaged.
Right.
And so even if no one around me is getting engaged, because my social media algorithms show me so much of that, it gives me a more balance of understanding, like just because it's not happening per se around me doesn't mean that it's not happening at a large rate around other places. And even if you're looking at demographics wise, there's been a few articles, like, because now we're coming up to the wrap up of the year. So they're talking about the rates and the percentages of millennials and stuff that got married this year and whatnot, and compared to divorce rate, etc. So it is happening, and in those we're hoping that they, like, you know, took premarital classes, etc. There is things in place to be able to help, or to be able to ask those questions before getting married, and just being like, we're here now, we're in love, but now what do we do, right?
What's the next step?
Right. And being able to have those supports around you, because it isn't easy, but I would just think that before getting married, that you would work on those, because I feel like submission really has to do with trust in that person, but trust in their decision making, and like trust in like trust in their decision making. And so if I don't trust your decision making as a girlfriend, why would I tie my finances with yours? Why would you tie yours with mine? Right? Yeah. But no, yeah, because love can make you do some crazy things, y'all. But no, all in all, I think that it is happening. There's a lot of marriages happening, and the divorces that we have been seeing have been like people older than our generation and whatnot.
Okay.
But sometimes that, because it's like, I was trusting you. You've now shown me after 22 years that you are not making good decisions. So now I'm out. Now I'm leaving. But I held on for so many years thinking that X, Y, and Z.
So I get your point, because it's, even if he leads you to a ditch, do you trust him enough to get you out?
That's what I'm saying. And sometimes falling in that ditch gives you an opportunity to see your partner's skills in a different area. Okay, I might not have thought he was strong at communication, but wow, look at how he's strong at da-da-da-da. I'm seeing his try, and it, going back to like the fruits of spirit, it helps me. I have compassion now. I have empathy. I'm seeing that he's trying. I might be seeing you in a different light than I was as you were trying to get us to this place. Us being in this place now might show me a different you. And then like the hustle, the drive is like, yeah, okay, cool. And then when we're ready to do it again, I got to see a different party. I got to see that driving you. Then now I'm like, all right, I wasn't sure before. Now I'm with you.
I'm all in.
Now I'm all in. And so it's like, it's the vulnerability of what you're saying. It really just comes down to character.
Wait, hold on. I got one question.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to let T. Davis take it. There's a lot of questions I have, right? But I'm only going to go with this one, right?
Okay.
There is the thought process that as the girlfriend, I'm not going to do wife stuff.
Okay.
And it was interesting because what you said is well, I need to see him move as a husband before he can become a husband.
Mm-hmm.
So does that also work vice versa? Because it's like, you can't just say, yo, I'm going to be a husband
Mm-hmm.
and a leader when I become a husband. No, you have to show those qualities.
Yeah.
Do it also work vice versa?
Should it work
Yeah.
vice versa?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer that, but I just want to clarify that that's not specifically what I meant when I said that before getting married, that I would hope that I more so meant on the trust side of things, because trust is what helps with like submission. So if you can't ultimately trust someone enough as a boyfriend and girlfriend, that lack of trust doesn't disappear now just because you're married.
Yeah.
So that's more so what I meant, because now you've already walked yourself into something hoping that the love was going to fill the gap, when really you don't trust him. And so now when those enough interactions happen where you're like, that's when that pushback now comes to come, and it's like, well, I'm not going with you, and no, we can't, and I will not sell this house, all of those that. And he's like, well, where's all this coming from? But honestly, it was there when it was like, she just thought that
us being married would erase it.
Right.
And marriage isn't the ending, it's the start.
It is. And it is the start to something, a whole different thing. Now it's really just y'all. But to answer your actual question on do I think that the standards should be
the same,
set for both, standards should be there for both the male and the female. Yes, again, it is like similar, but
well, really the question is like, should a husband or what, like, should certain qualities come out in the dating phase?
Yes.
Is there certain responsibilities, or is there like, look, there's girlfriend and there's wife and there's nothing that overlaps?
No, I don't think necessarily that, but I do think that we all know when we are taking advantage of something, right? And that's not gender, just in specific, we all know when we're taking advantage of something. And so it's one thing to be able to like know that this is someone's actual characteristic, and she's actually going to do this because that's just who she is, and he's actually going to continue to do X, Y, and Z because that's who he is as a person, like before and with and without me.
Right.
That's the type of things that you should know. But it's another thing to say like, well, I'm going to see if she could do it for 3 years consistently, then I'll know she's a wife. Huh? Like, what are we talking about? Oh, okay, yeah, she could do it like that. Now let's see if let me add this. I want to know if Tom's is really hard, if she can really stick it, and she gonna really stick it out.
So he go broke on purpose.
What?
Okay.
Like, what?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So there should, but it is a thing, and that's what I'm saying. That shouldn't be a thing. Yes, because there's not just like, we all have different personalities, and we all have like different things that are important to us. So I do want to know that my partner is interested in the same things I'm interested. We have the same like foundation characteristics, whether that's family, etc. Like those things are important to know. But I don't he should not like, well, let me see if he's gonna pay my rent from now, and then I'm gonna know he's a husband. That's not what I'm saying here. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. And like, even like there's numerous examples that we see like all over social media and that we've experienced as well, where you're like, or somebody say something, well, I don't, you're like, oh, well, you're not gonna be my wife. You're not gonna be my wife. So, and then y'all just keep on dating for a couple of months until the summer, till the sun starts shining, and then you part your ways, right? You part ways. But you're like, okay, and you know in your heart, like, this is not something that's gonna be taken seriously. So yeah, you should know that you guys have the same things that you want out of a marriage and the qualities that would make your marriage go forward. But don't abuse those things once you know that person could do it without actually wanting to get married.
The expectation should be set forth by both parties.
Yeah, because how will they know?
No, true.
And both parties have to be able to have the chance to say, I wasn't thinking about doing that, but I might because of thing, or like, can you explain to me why that's important to you?
Right.
And then from there, like, you know, X, Y, and Z, because just because something is new to this new relationship compared to your past relationships doesn't mean that you're not open to trying it. It's just that your last relationships didn't ask for it. Yeah, they just didn't have it. It's not a bad thing, but now you're dating someone new, and so it's like, okay, at least let me know, and I'll decide if, okay, I see why that's important to you. It's not hard for me to do. Yeah, I'll do it.
Speaking of, let me know.